when it comes to fractions, actually one questions always baffled students. Okay, and the question is 0 a fraction? Is 0 a fraction? Now, to answer this question, we need to understand the definitions of 0 as well as fractions. What is 0 and what is fraction? So, let us understand these definitions. First, let us try to understand the definition of 0 quite clearly. 0 is defined in many ways. In some textbooks or in some mathematics, actually some mathematicians define 0 to be a natural number like 0, 1, 2, 3 and so on. Some mathematicians define natural numbers to be numbers 1, 2, 3 and so on. So, you can see there are contradictions between mathematicians' definitions of natural numbers here. Some mathematicians tries to include 0 in natural numbers list, and some are trying to exclude 0 from the natural numbers list. So, why is it? Let us try to understand this. Now, in mathematics, 0 is defined as the smallest non-negative number as well as the largest non-positive number. That is, in mathematics, 0 is defined as the smallest non-negative integer as well as the largest non-positive integer. Okay? The smallest non-negative integer or the largest non-positive integer. So, as you can see, 0 is definitely an integer. This is not something that anyone is contradicted with. 0 is definitely an integer in mathematics. 0 is a number which is an integer. Now, this is something that you have to remember. So, what is the meaning of this particular definition? The smallest non-negative integer or the largest non-positive integer? The meaning of this is sometimes 0 is neither a positive integer nor a negative integer, and in other times 0 can be a positive integer as well as a negative integer. Okay? Why? I will tell you in a moment. 0 is regarded as either neither a positive integer nor a negative integer, or vice versa. That is, 0 is regarded as either a positive integer or a negative integer. Now, in mathematics, 0 is defined as basically an empty number. 0 means empty, nothing. In Sanskrit, 0 is called shunya, nothing, empty. So, 0 means empty. This is its core basic definition. But here, you can see 0 is an integer. So many of you might think that okay, 0 is an integer, so it is a rational number, and a rational number is always like of the form p by q, where p and q belongs to integers, right, and q is not equal to 0, that is the denominator is not equal to 0. Otherwise, if the denominator q is equal to 0, this whole rational number is basically undefined. The denominator can't be 0, right? So, because 0 is a rational number, you can think, yes, therefore 0 is a fraction, because every rational number is basically a fraction, right? Because the rational numbers is always a ratio, always a fraction of two integers p and q. So, because 0 is an integer and it can be also written like 0 by 1 or 0 by any number where n is definitely not equal to 0, and hence why 0 can be a fraction. 0 is an integer and 0 is a rational number as well, and definitely every integer is a rational number, and because 0 is an integer, therefore it is also a rational number and hence is a fraction. But no, 0 is definitely an integer, but the thing is 0 is not an ordinary integer. It is an integer with special meanings attached to it. As you can see, this is one of the speciality of zeros. The smallest non-negative integer or the largest non-positive integer. Sometimes 0 can be used as negative, sometimes 0 can be used as positive. Similarly, 0 can be regarded as neither a positive nor a negative number. So, 0 have many special qualities attached to itself. So, one thing that you should keep in your mind is 0 is definitely not a ordinary integer. Hence, you can't just define 0 is a fraction. You just can't tell it that 0 is a fraction. That is not going to happen. Now, as you can see the qualities of 0, 0 is definitely an integer, but the meaning, the most important meaning that is attached to 0 is empty number. 0 means nothing, right? So, we will come back to this point in a couple of moments. Now, let us define what fractions actually are. Fractions. Fractions. Now, fractions means some part of something, that is called fractions. So, there is a subtle difference between rational numbers and fractions. Fractions were defined to divide things into parts. That is why fractions were defined. But rational number is an abstract mathematical definition. Rational number is always defined as the ratio of two integers p and q, where q is not equal to 0, or whatever is in the denominator is not equal to 0. That is the definition of rational numbers. Okay. Now, fractions, as I have just told you, fractions are always some part of something. Suppose a circle like this, and you want 1/4 of this circle, that is this whole portion, 1/4 into this circle. Suppose circle to be a thing, anything, so 1/4 of this particular circle. Now, suppose you want 1/40th of this circle. Definitely, this whole number is going to be smaller than this number. Now, suppose you want 1/400 of this circle. and so on to 1 by and so on of the circle. This is definitely the very small part of the circle that we wanted. But here is the catch. This is definitely 0.25 of the circle. Similarly, this part is defined as some part of the circle, and this part is however close to 0. This is definitely, this whole resultant comes out to be definitely very near to 0. Suppose I wanted to put so many zeros, indefinitely zeros, in front of this 4, then definitely this whole ratio becomes very small, and it is so small that it is actually close to 0. It is not definitely exactly equal to 0, but it is close to 0. But yet there is some part of this circle involved in this particular thing, in this particular number. Hence it is a fraction, definitely. But what if I told you 0 of C, that is 0 part of this circle means 0. 0 is an empty number. Then how can we take an empty part of this circle? How can we take nothing from this? If we took nothing from this circle, that means this circle remains intact. There is not a single piece of this circle that has been gone, right? So after taking the 0 part of this circle, all the circle remains here. All the circular part is actually, all the things here are attached to this circle. There is no loss in this case. And as you recall, fractions is defined as always some part of something, and if you don't take any part of this particular thing, then how can you can say 0 is a fraction? Hence 0 is not a fraction. That is the reason why 0 is not a fraction, because 0 is an empty number, and fraction always means some part of something, and 0th part of something means no part of anything. We have not taken any part of whatever thing we are actually concerned with, and that is the reason why 0 is not a fraction. Definitely there is a debate going on whether 0 is a fraction or not, but most of the mathematicians believe 0 is not a fraction. And these are the reasons. These are some of the reasons. There are so many reasons here. I am not going to talk about all the reasons, but yes, these are some of the reasons why 0 is not a fraction. Because of its speciality. Yes, you can say because we write 0 by 1 is equal to 0. So 0 is a rational number. 0 is definitely a rational number because 0 is a integer, right? But 0 is also a rational number that you can't write this number. Despite the fact being 0 a rational number, you can't say this whole ratio is a rational number. This ratio is just basically undefined, because the denominator should not be 0 for a ratio to be defined, for a fraction to be defined. So 0 is definitely a rational number, 0 is definitely an integer, but 0 is not an ordinary integer. 0 have special qualities attached with it, and hence 0 is not a fraction. 0 is just a number, and you know what kind of number 0 is, but 0 is definitely not a fraction. Now one more thing, why I said sometimes 0 is regarded as either a positive or a negative number, and alternatively sometimes 0 is regarded as neither positive nor negative number. Why? x, suppose x is a number, x plus 0 gives you 0. Similarly, x minus 0 also gives you 0. So this is one of the reasons why sometimes 0 is regarded as either a positive or a negative quantity, integer, and sometimes it is regarded as neither a positive nor a negative quantity. So these are the facts, these are some reasons. 0 has a special integer, very important integer, and that is the reason why also 0 is always in the middle of the number line, right? If we consider this number line from minus infinity to plus infinity, 0 is definitely at the center of this particular number line, right? So definitely 0 has some qualities. Despite being an integer, 0 has definitely some qualities attached to it, and hence these are some of the reasons why 0 should not be a fraction. You should not consider 0 as a fraction. This is what my point of view regarding 0. Okay, so I hope you understand why 0 is not a fraction. Thank you.